Did you know there was a time in Hungary when elections weren't won by the candidate with the most votes, but by the one handing out the most goulash and wine on the edge of town? Or that voters were hauled from city to city in trucks, just so they could cast their ballots in multiple places? This isn't the opening scene of a crime thriller. Imagine what it felt like to have to shout out your vote in front of armed gendarmes. Say the wrong name, and you'd lose your job by the next morning. In this video, we're pulling back the curtain on the 7 most outrageous election frauds and dirty tricks that decided the fate of the country for decades. The power of goulash and wine, how votes were bought. At the end of the 19th century, election campaigns weren't about billboards. Picture this: candidates would rent out an entire local pub or farmhouse and dish out free food and drinks to voters for days. The goal? Make the voters so grateful for the endless goulash that they wouldn't even think about voting for anyone else. You could say the quickest way to a voter's heart was through their stomach. But there was a darker side to this: voter trapping. They would literally get the opposition supporters blackout drunk and lock them in a barn until the polls closed, making sure they had zero chance of making it to the ballot box. So much alcohol flowed during a single election that you could easily fill the stretch of the Danube in front of the parliament with it. Feeding and watering the masses cost a lot of money, but the next method didn't cost a dime. All you needed was a pencil and a map. Map magicians. Gerrymandering the districts. Have you ever heard of someone winning an election simply because they were the ones drawing the map? It's called gerrymandering, or electoral district manipulation. The whole point is to redraw the boundaries so that opposition votes just disappear into the system. In Hungary, they turned this into an absolute art form. They rigged the districts so heavily that while it took 20,000 to 30,000 votes in an opposition-leaning city to elect a single representative, a safely pro-government rural village only needed 2,000 votes to secure a win. It's like telling one football team they have to score 10 goals just to get a single point. In the years following the Treaty of Trianon, they even left stump districts right along the new borders, just so the government could secure guaranteed seats with a few hundred local voters. Redrawing maps was quiet, behind closed doors office work. But our next method played out loudly and terrifyingly right in the main squares of the villages. The gendarme sees all. The era of open voting. Can you imagine not voting in the privacy of a secret booth, but having to stand before a committee and loudly declare your candidate's name? All while the local landlord and an armed gendarme stand right next to you, writing down your every word. During the Horthy era, under Prime Minister István Bethlen, this is exactly what happened in rural Hungary. The official propaganda spun it by claiming that an honest Hungarian man acts openly in broad daylight. In reality, it was pure, unadulterated intimidation. If a poor day laborer didn't vote for the ruling party, they were fired the very next day, or the gendarmes would pull them aside for a little chat. It's no coincidence that in 1926, the ruling party grabbed almost 70% of the seats, and in many places, opposition candidates didn't even dare to run. The handkerchief trick, scandal in the parliament. One of the most brazen incidents went down in 1904. Prime Minister István Tisza was fed up with the opposition constantly stalling parliamentary work, so he devised a cunning trap. The trick relied on the House rules. Back then, standing up from your seat signaled a yes vote. Out of nowhere, the Speaker of the House began rapidly mumbling a proposal for stricter rules, and then dramatically waved his handkerchief. On that cue, the ruling party members immediately leaped to their feet. The opposition MPs couldn't hear what was happening over the sudden noise, so they stood up too, some to see better, others to shout their protests. The trap snapped shut. Since everyone in the room was standing, the Speaker instantly declared the House had accepted the proposal. When the opposition realized they had literally used their own legs to vote for a law aimed against them, all hell broke loose. In a fit of sheer rage, they smashed the parliament's furniture to pieces and chased the police with broken chair legs. But this trick was child's play compared to what went down in 1947. This is where election fraud went completely industrial. This is the most infamous election fraud in Hungarian history. The communists were determined to win at any cost, and they weaponized a simple piece of paper. This was the blue ballot, originally designed to allow people to vote away from their permanent address if they were traveling. However, the communist-controlled Ministry of the Interior printed these slips by the hundreds of thousands. Picture this: trucks and trains crisscrossed the country, loaded with party activists. A single person could cast their vote in 15 to 20 different towns on the exact same day. The unsung hero of this story is Sarah Carrig, a polling station president who spotted the massive fraud and reported it. Do you know what her reward was? The very next day, she was dragged away by the Soviet secret police and spent 6 brutal years working in a gulag mine. At least the blue ballot phantoms were flesh and blood people. For our next trick, you didn't even need a pulse to cast a vote. The votes of the dead, zombie voters. One of the most bizarre forms of election fraud is when voters seemingly rise from the graveyard. All it took was a little oversight during the paperwork. Names of people who had been dead for years were left on the registry, making them look very much alive in the system. Then, someone else would just stroll into the polling station using the dead person's papers. There's even a documented case where a man who had been dead for 14 years received a voting notice in the mail. This method works especially well with mail-in ballots, where it's incredibly hard to verify exactly who sealed the envelope. Before we reveal our final trick, let's take a quick detour. Our list wouldn't be complete without mentioning those small, yet brutally effective tactics played by local kingpins. The bridge lockdown. If a village was known to lean toward the opposition, authorities would suddenly declare the only bridge leading to the polling station life-threatening on election day. Just like that, the whole village was stranded at home. The dark count. During the tallying of votes, the room's candle or lamp would accidentally go out, and in the pitch black, miracles happened. Piles of opposition ballots magically migrated over to the pro-government side. The census restriction. Let's not forget the biggest hurdle of all. During the dualism era, barely 6% of the population was even allowed to vote. If you didn't have enough wealth or a specific degree, you weren't even in the game. 7. The invisible chain. Finally, let's look at a highly technical trick known as chain voting, or carousel voting. This guarantees that fraudsters get exactly what they paid for, making sure the person they bribed actually votes for them. The method is brilliantly simple. The first voter goes in, receives their ballot, but secretly hides it while blank. They drop an empty envelope into the ballot box and walk out, handing the clean, blank ballot to the organizer waiting outside. Out in a parked car, the organizer marks the ballot in the right spot. The next bribed voter is handed this pre-marked ballot. They go inside, receive their own blank ballot, but while in the voting booth, they slip the pre-marked one into their envelope and cast it. They then walk out and hand their newly acquired blank ballot to the organizer. As you can see, those in power were willing to do absolutely anything, from weaponizing goulash and blue ballots, all the way to unleashing the gendarmes. The history of Hungarian elections is full of dark secrets, but the example of Sarah Carrig and others like her proves that there were always people willing to risk their lives for the truth. These stories serve as a stark reminder that freedom isn't a given. It's something we have to fiercely protect. If you enjoyed this historical investigation and want to uncover more mysteries of Hungarian history, hit that subscribe button and don't miss out on this next video.